been married for 60 years. Happily married for 60 years. They still hold hands and dance in the kitchen and have inside jokes, and my father still leaves love notes from my mom on his way to the grocery store. Being their daughter is both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because for 54 years I have borne witness to this incredible love affair. And so I know deep in my heart that love like that can exist and be everlasting. The downside of it is that I've self-shamed myself for years over the fact that I couldn't make my own marriages, plural, work. The first time I got married, I was 29 years old. I was the last of my friends to get married. Everyone was having their first kid, and I was finally walking down the aisle with a man who was gentle and sensitive and kind and loving. And 2 years later, that sensitive, gentle, kind, loving man decided to be sensitive, kind, and gentle with another woman and had an emotional affair with a married colleague at his work. He came home and confessed it the night after I had just gushed about him in a toast at one of my best friend's weddings. I felt like a fool. And I looked at him and I thought, God, this is not the picture I had, and certainly you weren't the guy that I thought could do this to me. And I looked at him and I was like, do you love her? And he said, I don't know. And I said, do you love me? And he said, I don't know. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of emotion. He agreed to stop the affair. We agreed to go to therapy. And the interesting part about therapy, if you've been divorced, you've probably been through it, is they like to focus on your childhoods. And when you have a childhood that was pretty idyllic like mine, and you have parents who are still married like mine, the focus gets off of what's happened to you and it gets moved to the person who had the fucked up childhood. And his was supremely fucked up with alcoholism and abuse, and he was an addict himself. He had been sober for 10 years before we got together, but in that moment at my mid-30s, it was another message that so many women get, which is set aside what you need and use your empathy to feel for what this person has gone through. And the therapy turned from the betrayal that I felt into, but we should feel bad for what happened to him as a kid, and this is probably why he's acting out in the way that he has. And slowly I started to set aside parts of me to stay. Fast forward 6 years, I'm in a sexless marriage with someone who's basically my friend and my roommate, and I'm talking to one of my best girlfriends and I'm bitching about it, and she says, as good girlfriends should, babe, and you know what's coming when they say babe, because it's gonna be some tough love shit. Babe, you know we've been saying the same shit for 5 years, right? You know that, right? I did. But there was so much shame for me. I didn't want to be the girl who gets a divorce when you have parents who've been together all these years, who've been held up on some pedestal by all of your high school friends, your college friends, who are like, oh, the pulse. I hung in there because I was too ashamed to say I couldn't make it work. But a few weeks later, in a very quiet conversation on the floor of our home, my first husband and I decided to get a divorce. Within a few weeks, we had the paperwork done. A couple months later, we were at the courthouse. We signed everything, signed, sealed, delivered, and the very next day, we went to dinner and a concert, and my friends were like, this is the most fucked up divorce I have ever seen. And I said, I love him. I just don't want to stay with him for the rest of my life. Fast forward a few years, and I start to date someone that I met at work. He and I had been very good friends, and he moved to Virginia. I was still in New Jersey. We were long distance for a few years. And at first, it was a very convenient friends with benefits situation, which I was enjoying immensely. And that lasted about 9 months, and then as sometimes friends with benefits, things happen, and we start to catch feelings, and we started to catch feelings, and we decided that we were gonna try to date and see if we could make it work. We were 3 years long distance, and at one point he proposed, and I accepted. And he had been trying to move to New Jersey for work, and I was waiting for him to come back home, and the job market up there was terrible, and he was having a really hard time. And right around then, his perfect job at the company he always wanted to work for came up. He told me about it, and I said, because I needed to, and I knew I needed to, I said, go on, try to get that job, and if you do, I'll move. And sure enough, he got that job, and I gave up proximity to my family and my friends and my home to move to the DC area. Fast forward 6 years. It's the spring of 2020. It's COVID, we're in lockdown. I have this great job as a sales and training executive for Chanel. It's a job I wanted ever since I was younger and I started behind a counter. The 6-figure salary, the pension, the benefits, it was like the job to have at the company to have. I mean, it was a really cool thing to walk into a cocktail party and tell people you worked at Chanel. They were like, damn, this is cool. Like, I became instantly interesting. And at that time, when we were in lockdown, I was longing for connection. So I started to create some online confidence content for women. I knew beauty, that was my background, so I taught a little bit about that. We talked about style, but more so it was about mindset around confidence in midlife. And not this midlife crisis that everyone wants to talk about, but this midlife reckoning that happens inside of a woman's spirit when she reaches this time frame in her life. It started as a creative outlet. I didn't expect it to go anywhere. And fast forward 2 years, and I am sitting at 100,000 women across the world who are following me for messages of confidence and reinvention. And I'm 52 years old, and I'm thinking to myself, could I make a career out of this? So I throw some wild notion out into the universe, because I'm already making about a third of my salary, my Chanel salary, by not really even trying. And what kind of work could I do if I had all of the time to just focus on this? And it was like the dream job description. And I threw out this wild notion to the universe, and I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna quit Chanel in 9 months. I'm gonna get my bonus check first, because I'm not stupid. But I'm gonna quit right after that. And I turned to my husband and I told him, I was like, yeah, you know, I'm feeling like I could do this, like do this full time and make a career out of this. And he was like, okay. Listen, I'm a creative, and we are notoriously squirrel-brained. Any squirrel-brained creatives in the house? I'm one of those people who gets like, you know, ooh, I want to start making jewelry, and then I buy all the shit, and then I abandon it in 6 months because I want to learn how to play the guitar. Like, that's me. And so I'm sure in that moment he was like, she's gonna get off this shit. 9 months later, I'm still on that shit. And in tears, at a dinner table, I told him, like, I'm losing myself in my corporate life. Give me a year. Let me chase my dream down now. Give me a year. If it doesn't work, I'll go back to corporate. He's reluctant. He's like, let's run the numbers. He was a numbers guy. He was safety security, and I was like, risk and YOLO. We were polar opposites. But we went home, we went through the spreadsheets, the budgets, we determined what I could still bring to the table. It all sounded great. And he was like, okay, I'm on board. Great, that's all I needed to hear. 2 weeks later, I turned in my notice. I came home, I was so excited. And I turned to my person, and I was like, I'm so excited. I just turned in my 2 weeks notice today. And his face was not what I expected. He looked solemn and surprised, and the little hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. 2 weeks later, I mail in my laptop, and I'm done. I'm psyched. I'm like on fire. The next day I go to IKEA. I buy 4 different pieces of furniture for my filming studio and my new office in the bedroom that I cleared out for just this purpose. I come home, I build all of those IKEA MFers by myself with a friggin' Allen wrench. Thank you. Thank you. I set up my studio, I got to filming. I was like Jerry Maguire with the goldfish in the baggie. Like, I'm gonna change the world one Instagram post at a time. Who is with me? He was not. Because he stayed for just 3 weeks out of the year that he promised to be in my corner. And 3 weeks from my last day at Chanel, when I gave up the 6 figures and the salary and the benefits and the 401k and the pension, he came home and sat down at the kitchen island in a very quiet conversation and told me he didn't want to be married to me anymore. It's not so much that I didn't see it coming for us. I felt it coming for us. I just didn't know I wouldn't be at the table when the decision was made. He stayed for 2 months while we worked out separation paperwork. I'm trying to start a business in the home where he still walks around, and I want to kill him on the daily, and I can't get it together. And then I'm supposed to turn on a camera and coach confidence when my own was in the shitter. I spent those 2 months while he was there purging, literally purging all of the emotions that I possibly could. And when he left, I came home to an empty house and I said, get moving. I got myself a dog. Her name is Rosie. She's adorable. You should see her. We started walking miles every single day. I was processing, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm doing my thing. I start to create content. Everything is moving forward. And the thing I realized is that, as most of us do in relationships, I had given up so much of myself trying to serve that relationship. Relationships, in my mind, are like a car ride. You get in the car, you pack your shit. Maybe you've got a Labrador in the front, and your car is just to the gills with all of your stuff, and you set down the road. And at some point on your journey, you meet someone, and they're like, you know what? I really like you, I want to spend time with you. And you decide to travel together. They get in the car. There's not room for them in the car, so you gotta take some of your stuff out of your car. And you leave some of those things on the side of the road to make room for them and their stuff. You drive a little ways, maybe you collect some more things, and you have to leave some other things on the side of the road to make room for those new things. And at some point, you reach the end of that road. And you can go left or you can go right. Except at this point, neither one of you wants to go in the same direction. So you make the decision that this is the end of the road. They get out of the car and they remove all their things from the trunk and the back seat and the console and the little pocket that holds nothing, but we seem to jam it with a lot of stuff. They close the door behind them and the echo just sort of reverberates. And it's that sound of all the things you left in order to make space for them. I feel like divorce and the time after divorce is a reclaiming of yourself. And for the past 2.5 years, that's exactly what I've been doing. I turned my car around and retraced my route. And I pulled over and I started to pick back up all of those things I had left on the side of the road. The trips I didn't go on with friends, the hobbies I wanted to pursue but didn't, the things I wanted to say, and I kept my mouth closed. And I packed my car back up, and now I'm I'm fucking driving. Thank you.